My fellow Crusader Kings, have you been having trouble leading your realm? Has the bubonic plague ravaged your court? Has your Holy Roman Empire split up into this holy shit of a mess? Has your son and heir had an unwanted baby with your daughter? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then you need my new scroll. If you follow the 3 basic steps in kingdom management found in this scroll, your realm will look like this in no time. Before we get started, I just wanted to say I have been playing this game pretty much non-stop since its release a few weeks ago, and I think it's a masterpiece. The massive scope of Crusader Kings 3 makes the game always feel fresh and allows for players to have a new experience every time they start a playthrough. However, as a newcomer to 4X games, getting the hang of all the ins and outs can be frustrating, so I decided to make this video for anyone new to Crusader Kings. I will be talking about 3 main things during this video: who to play as, how to manage your realm, and how to hand off your empire properly after your player dies. And I will be including timestamps in the description if you're just having trouble with one or two of these things, so you can jump around. The world in Crusader Kings 3 is huge, and jumping right into the game can be a bit scary, as you might not know who to play as. This is especially true, as you are not limited to the leader of these large nations. As you can see on the map, you can always click on one and bring out everyone who works under this king or liege.
What? I told you, we're an anarcho-syndicalist commune.
And you can choose to play as them as well. Because in Crusader Kings 3, you don't play as a nation or an empire. You play as a family head. You, the player, moves from head of the family to head of the family as they progress through time, either gaining or losing power, depending on how you play the game. However, before this, the first decision you'll have to make is what time period you want to play in. 867 or 1066. Although the time periods are only 200 years apart, there are a lot of differences in the options. The playable world in 867 has a lot more small nations, which can be appealing to a beginner. However, many of the nations in 867 are much less advanced than in 1066, meaning you'll have less options for developing your nation as you progress through the early game. If it is your first time playing, I would recommend 867, as there is already so much you need to manage. Having less advanced nations can be helpful. Now, before you pick your favorite powerful leader with a huge army and lots of land, you should take a look at what type of government they're currently using, as the government type will largely affect how you play, and changing it can be a process that takes hundreds of years. There are 3 types of governments, being tribe, clan, and feudal. Tribe is the simplest of the 3, and will be the government of choice for all the least developed lands in the game. Tribal governments can use prestige or fame to purchase new units for their armies, and their buildings can be made with small amounts of gold and prestige. Tribal rulers can also wage war much more easily than their feudal neighbors, as they get a casus belli for anyone neighboring them. Finally, tribal rulers can raid nearby nations for gold and prestige whenever they see the need for it. Feudal and clan leaders, on the other hand, can only use gold to buy units and buildings, and will have a harder time getting casus bellis against their enemies, as they are supposed to be more sophisticated. However, their upside comes in that the castles and the buildings that the feudal or clan leaders can build will produce better benefits than the tribal holdings and tribal buildings, which should lead to more gold, fame, levies, and unit benefits over time. Taking this into consideration, I would still recommend starting with a leader from a tribal government, as the raiding ability will be able to get you out of sticky situations whenever you need gold or prestige fast, and the simplicity of being able to declare war on any nation next to you can help new players expand their nation very simply. Managing your realm is a very important part to Crusader Kings 3. Improper management can lead to you missing out on large portions of your gold and troops, as well as constant wars of independence with your lesser lords and ladies. To explain how to run your land properly, first we'll need to talk about how land is divided in Crusader Kings. So the map can be divided in a hierarchy of empires, kingdoms, duchies, counties, and then holdings. But for now, we'll be talking about duchies, counties, and holdings, because when you start out, you likely won't be the powerful ruler of a grand kingdom or empire. A duchy contains 2 or more counties, which can then have 1 or several holdings in these counties. These holdings depend on your government type, but for a feudal leader, they are castles, cities, and temples. In the upper right-hand corner of your screen, you can see something called your domain limit. This limit determines how many holdings you can have under your personal control, meaning that all the benefits of these holdings go directly into your army and treasury without anyone else taking a cut. You can tell you're the one that owns these holdings, as it will have a blue outline around the name. However, some holdings in a county you won't be able to control, such as cities, as they require a republic ruler, which you cannot be as a player. Another example of this are temple holdings, which as a leader of a Christian faith, you're not able to hold. However, if you're playing as an Islamic leader, you can hold these temples directly and get the benefits from their buildings. Now, what about all these other lands in your realm? The ones that you cannot hold personally, because it would put you over your domain limit. For these situations, you need to grant these lands to other people in your kingdom that can hold them for you. These people then become your vassals. Vassals are a hugely important part of your realm and are often overlooked by new players, which can lead to lots of problems. Because you gave away land to a vassal, they now get all the benefits from the holdings in those regions. However, since you are their ruler, they must pay a proportion of the gold and units in their realm to you. All this can be seen in the vassal menu of the realm tab. Now, depending on the type of government that the vassal is using, there will be different things you can do to improve how much money and how many levies they supply to you. For an example, a clan vassal's contribution will depend on how friendly he is towards you. Meaning, if you keep his opinion of you up, he will provide more money and more units. Here we can see this clan vassal is providing 8% of his contribution, 8% of his gold contribution to me, and 22% of his levy contribution. If I were to send him a gift, this would improve his opinion to 100. Now, if I press play and pause, you can see a huge change in the amount of gold and the amount of levies he's providing me. Another thing to look out for is the not rightful liege symbol next to a vassal. This means your vassal is supposed to be supporting a ruler which holds certain tiles, and at this moment you do not hold these tiles. This has a large debuff on how many levies and how much gold they send to you. You can see here it is multiplied by about half. What you can do is hover over the symbol and find out what land it is that he wishes for you to control, and see if you can create this title, which will make you their rightful liege, which will also improve their opinion of you. This brings us to the next important topic involving vassals, which is how to keep them happy. An unhappy vassal has the option to join factions against you. These can be seen in the Factions tab. Once these factions reach their desired military power, they will declare war against you for independence. You can check on a vassal's opinion of you in the Vassals tab, and you can see if there's any simple thing you can do to improve their opinion of you, such as offering them a seat on the council. Other ways of improving relations is increasing your character's diplomacy skill. This skill has a direct effect on other people's opinion of your character. So going down the diplomacy tree will often improve relations with your vassals. Now, because you're the head of the family, we need to talk about what happens when you die. If you just started playing Crusader Kings 3, you would have noticed that after your player's death, your great kingdom has probably split into smaller territories. This is because under the laws of succession, all of your children have a right to some of their parents' land. This can all be seen in the Succession tab in the Realm menu. Here you can see who is your primary heir, which is the person who you will be playing as after you die. And below them you can see all the other members of your family that will get titles that you currently own. This is because of your nation's succession laws. When you begin a new playthrough, this will most likely be set to Confederate Partition, which means that All your titles will be divided equally between all of your kids. If you hover over these laws, they will explain things in more detail. However, what you need to know is that to stop this from happening, you need the technology that is only available in the late medieval era. So it's safe to say that you won't have access to it for at least a couple hundred years of gameplay.
But if I can't research this tech for most of the game, how do I stop my lands from splitting whenever my player dies?
Well, don't you worry, I'm about to tell you how. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is limit how many kids you're having. When you become a new character, it's best to get a certain skill in the learning skill tree that will let you become celibate. This trait turns your character's fertility down to 0%, stopping you from having kids. It also is a choice in the decision tab. There's no problem rushing it in the inventory if you don't have any kids yet, as you can just embrace celibacy whenever you're ready. You will still want to have at least a couple of viable heirs because, as you have probably noticed, life in the Middle Ages isn't the safest time for kids. Since you now reduce the number of heirs you have, your land will split into smaller pieces. However, our goal here is not to have the land split at all, so that your primary heir gets everything you own and you retain all your power when you play as your next character. There are a few options for axing kids from your succession laws, but my personal favorite is the disinherit option. If you right click on any of your family members in your succession tree, you will be able to see the option under hostile to disinherit them. If they're still a kid, or if they don't own any lands, this costs 300 prestige and 150 of your family's renown, but it completely blocks them from receiving any titles on your death, so I think it's a small price to pay. And the great thing about disinheriting is that if your primary heir dies, as they often do, you can always re-inherit your favorite other child, so you won't get a nasty game over when you die. Well, those are all my tips for anyone who's new to Crusader Kings 3. This game has a huge learning curve to it, but once you get rolling, you can easily spend hours at a time playing. I am planning on making another Crusader Kings 3 video with some more advanced tips to help you really expand your kingdoms. So please do subscribe if that's something that you don't want to miss. And if you're watching this at a time where the video is already out, I'll link it right here. Thanks for watching.